Stick around until the end if you want to help reduce vaccine anxiety. Like many of us, I have friends and family who have warned me against trusting vaccines. They share videos of patients having seizures, testimonials from concerned parents with autistic children, and supposed whistleblowers exposing the truth of vaccine safety. In this video, I want to spend some time giving a fair critique of these ideas, talk about some of the controversies, and explain some of the basic science. If you like, you can look down below at the chapters, you can skip through to the parts that you find more relevant, and as always, all sources are cited. So some common misconceptions about vaccines. Vaccines contain many toxins. Everything is toxic at specific doses. Drink enough coffee and it will kill you. The dose is what makes the poison. The three most contested toxins in vaccines are formaldehyde, aluminium, and mercury. Are these compounds / elements toxic? Well, yes, but the whole truth is buried somewhere underneath the misinformation. So let's look at it. Formaldehyde is toxic, but our bodies also require a small amount of formaldehyde to function. The Almond's Encyclopedia of Industrial Chemistry states, formaldehyde is an essential intermediate in cellular metabolism in mammals and humans. Fun fact, pears contain about 7 times the amount of formaldehyde than what's in a typical infant's vaccine. Let's talk about aluminium. On average, there is more aluminium in breast milk than what's in infant vaccines, and there is 12 times the amount of aluminium in a block of cheese. Moving on to mercury. Ethyl mercury, which is an organic compound, is less toxic than methyl mercury, which is found in almost all fish. The half-life of ethyl mercury is less than 1 week, where methyl mercury is 1.5 months. Furthermore, ethyl mercury is excreted via the gut, where methyl mercury is a neurotoxin that builds up in your body. Another fun fact, 1 can of tuna provides the body with almost 200 times the amount of mercury than what's in one infant's thimerosal containing vaccine. And this brings us on to another point, and that is chemistry is often misunderstood. Imagine taking regular old organic natural bananas and extracting radioactive metals from them. Sounds like science fiction, right? Now onto the counters. When I bring up these points, people usually respond by saying that injecting a vaccine is completely different than eating the food and having the toxins come through your body naturally. This is also true but misleading. We are exposed to far greater amounts of these elements through our environment and diet than we ever get from vaccines. And these elements go straight into our bloodstream like every other thing that we eat. So although injecting these things straight into your bloodstream may be different, those elements are still getting into your bloodstream via your gut. They may just be at a slower rate, but we're exposed to far greater amounts in our diet and our environment. The next counter I usually face is, why do I have to have my children vaccinated if your children are vaccinated? And that's because social immunity only works when a certain amount of the population is immunized. So I think for most typical vaccines, it's 90 to 95% immunization. And there are some people who are immune compromised who cannot get the vaccine. And there are these people that we are trying to protect. The next counter I often get is vaccine injury is common. This is simply not true, but sure, there is some risk with every type of medication, both organic or synthetic. However, there is far greater risk by choosing not to get the vaccine. And sometimes that risk is fatal. Much like wearing a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatality by 47%, there are still some cases where people have died because of their seatbelts. Not getting a vaccine because of the risks is the equivalent of having a heart attack, but not getting into the ambulance because you're worried that the ambulance will crash on the way to the hospital. Moving on, the story behind the fear in the first place. Fear of vaccines have been around since they first appeared in 1796. However, in our current era, the internet has made it far easier for misinformation and scare tactics to go worldwide. The measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, and autism. The controversy first arose when Andrew Wakefield published his now retracted 1998 Lancet paper. The study was retracted by the Lancet after it was found that Andrew Wakefield used fraudulent research methodologies. In 2004, 10 of the 12 co-authors of the paper retracted the supposition, and the 11th couldn't be reached for contact. In the retraction, they said, "We wish to make it clear that in this paper, no causal link was established between the MMR vaccine and autism, as the data was insufficient." Even after the Lancet retracted Wakefield's paper, a wave of fear swept through the general population, leading to emotionally manipulative documentaries like Vaxxed. Because of this fear and public outcry, many new studies went looking for the link between the MMR vaccine and autism. Hundreds of studies were published from competing organizations, from competing countries, all over the world. They could find no link between the MMR vaccine and autism. In 2012, the CDSR completed a systematic review reviewing 5 randomized control trials, 1 controlled clinical trial, 27 cohort studies, 17 case control studies, 5 time series trials, 1 case crossover trial, 2 ecological studies, 6 self-controlled case series studies involving 14,700,000 children. They could find no association between the MMR vaccine and autism. Links below are only a handful of some of the peer-reviewed papers. Check them out yourselves. Statistics on vaccine-prevented illnesses. Many anti-vaccine communities downplay the risk of the illnesses that vaccines protect us from. In 2015, there were 134,000 measles deaths globally. Between 2000 and 2015, measles vaccinations prevented an estimated 20.3 million deaths. Before the US Mumps vaccination program started in 1967, about 186,000 cases were reported each year. There's been a 99% decrease in mumps cases in the United States since we started vaccinating against it. Rubella is an acute, contagious viral infection. It has severe consequences in pregnant women, causing fatal death or congenital disabilities. A single vaccine dose gives more than 95% long-lasting immunity. Each year, chickenpox caused more than 4 million cases. 2 doses of the vaccine are about 90% effective at preventing chickenpox. 8.5% of all pneumonia deaths are influenza related. Hepatitis B resulted in 887,000 deaths, mostly from complications. The vaccine is 95% effective in preventing infections. HPV can cause cervical cancer and other cancers. Before HPV vaccines were introduced, roughly 340 to 360 women and men were affected by genital warts caused by HPV every year. COVID-19 myths and facts. Myth: the ingredients in COVID-19 vaccines are dangerous. Fact: nearly all the ingredients in COVID-19 vaccinations are simple sugars, fats, and salts. Myth: natural immunity works better. Getting the COVID-19 vaccination is far safer and more reliable than getting sick with COVID-19 itself. Myth: the mRNA vaccine is not a true vaccine. Sure, they work differently than other vaccines, but they still provide an immune response that you get with any other vaccine. That's the point. Myth: COVID-19 vaccines contain a microchip. Fact: no. Myth: receiving the COVID-19 vaccination will make you magnetic. Fact: the COVID-19 vaccination will not make you magnetic. Myth: COVID-19 vaccines shed or release their compounds. False: vaccine shedding can only occur if the vaccines contain a live virus. The COVID-19 vaccine does not. Myth: COVID-19 vaccines can alter my DNA. Fact: COVID-19 vaccines do not change or interact with your DNA in any way. So, when you're sent a video from whistleblowers or people speaking the truth, ask yourself why millions of healthcare professionals are giving those same vaccines to themselves and their loved ones. If someone explains to you that they think vaccines are unsafe, ask them why their opinion differs to the consensus. What information do they have that the scientific consensus does not have? When someone rejects vaccines because they are not natural, remind them that neither is using a toilet or brushing your teeth. Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's better. The top 5 most toxic elements in the world, 4 of them are natural, only 1 of them is synthetic. Natural does not equal safe. If someone tries to claim that Big Pharma created these vaccines just to make money and all the science is bogus, ask them why competing organizations from competing countries all over the world have all come to the same conclusion. If your organization was competing with another organization or another country, and you could prove in a lab that their studies were fraudulent, wouldn't you do it? Why hasn't it been done? If someone suggests that the CDC in America is corrupt, then point them to the studies from this video from Denmark, the United Kingdom, Finland, Italy, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. As far as vaccines go, the science is precise and clear. Vaccines should be seen as the life-giving tool that they are. Everyone, I'd like to ask a favor. If you've had the COVID-19 vaccination and had a relatively positive experience, we'd like to hear about it. So my friend and I sat down and tried to work out how can we alleviate some of this anxiety around people getting the vaccination. And we thought maybe we should just give a voice to people who have had a positive and mundane experience. So that's when we created safeandvaxxed.com. So if you've had a positive vaccine experience, you can go to safeandvaxxed.com and you can upload a picture of yourself and it will go into our social media accounts. And the knock-on effect of this is it'll reduce the anxiety for people who are still sitting on the fence about getting the COVID-19 vaccination. By sharing your positive vaccine experience, you could actually be saving lives. Our goal is quite simple. We just want to add some positive energy around the COVID-19 vaccination and help alleviate some of that anxiety that some people may be feeling. So if you've had a positive vaccine experience and you now feel safe and vaxxed, go upload the photo and join the cause, and we can try and add some positivity into this conversation.